Abducted in plain sight. The shocking alien encounter. Over the Brooklyn Bridge. The night of November 30th, 1989, was cold and quiet in New York City. The hum of distant traffic and the occasional honking of taxicabs filled the streets below. But in a modest 12th floor apartment near the Brooklyn Bridge, Linda Napolitano was fast asleep, unaware that she was about to experience one of the most baffling and terrifying encounters in UFO history. At approximately 3:15 a.m., a piercing blue light erupted in her bedroom, casting eerie shadows across the walls. It wasn't just a glow. It was an all-consuming radiance that seemed to vibrate, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. Linda's eyes snapped open, her heart hammering in her chest. Before she could react, she felt an intense pressure surrounding her body, as if an invisible force had gripped her. Paralyzed and helpless, she realized she was levitating. She could feel herself rising from her bed, yet she hadn't moved a muscle. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever known, both weightless and constricting. As she tried to scream, no sound escaped her lips. To her horror, she was drifting toward her window. The glass remained firmly in place, yet she passed through it as though it were nothing but air. A rush of cold night wind hit her face as she ascended into the dark sky. Below, the city lights flickered in a surreal haze. Linda found herself inside an enormous metallic chamber, dimly illuminated by a soft, sterile glow. The air was thick, carrying an unidentifiable scent, something between burnt ozone and antiseptic. The walls pulsed faintly, as if they were alive. Around her stood three beings. Their skin was smooth and gray, their heads elongated, and their black, almond-shaped eyes devoid of any human emotion. They did not speak, but their presence radiated an unsettling calmness, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. A voice, soft yet authoritative, spoke directly into her mind. "Do not be afraid," it instructed. Linda's body betrayed her, remaining still despite the sheer terror coursing through her veins. The creatures guided her onto a flat metallic examination table. Restraints slithered into place around her wrists and ankles, though no hands had moved them. She tried to resist, but her limbs refused to obey. A sharp metallic instrument was lowered toward her face. Panic surged through her as she felt the cold, rigid tip press against her nostril. Then, without warning, an excruciating pain shot through her skull as the device was pushed deep into her sinus cavity. Her vision blurred, tears streaming down her temples. Then, darkness. Meanwhile, on the Brooklyn Bridge, two men sat inside a black sedan, parked just outside a government building. They were not ordinary bystanders. They were security agents assigned to a high-profile political figure. As they scanned their surroundings, they noticed a peculiar glow hovering above a nearby apartment complex. Before their stunned eyes, a woman, motionless, arms at her sides, was being lifted out of a 12-story window. The scene was surreal, as if gravity itself had surrendered to some higher force. She ascended toward an enormous, silent craft that defied all logic. The agents sat frozen, unable to process what they were witnessing. One reached for his radio, hesitating before speaking. What could he possibly report? That a woman was being taken by an unidentified flying object? The glowing craft hovered for a moment before vanishing into the night sky. The men looked at each other, their expressions filled with unspoken fear. This was no dream, no trick of the light. This was real. Linda awoke with a gasp, her sheets drenched in sweat. Her room was as it had been before, silent and undisturbed, but something was wrong. Her nose throbbed painfully, and a faint trickle of blood dripped onto her pillow. Days later, she discovered a thin, unexplainable scar on the side of her nose. The headaches that followed were unbearable. She knew something had happened, but the memories were fragmented, like flashes of a nightmare she couldn't quite grasp. Desperate for answers, she sought the help of Bud Hopkins, a prominent UFO researcher specializing in alien abduction cases. Through hypnosis, the horrific details resurfaced. The cold, emotionless beings, the examination table, the searing pain, the silent terror. As word spread, her case gained national attention. The two government agents, shaken by what they had seen, came forward to confirm that yes, they had witnessed a woman being levitated into a UFO near the Brooklyn Bridge that night. Skeptics called it hysteria, a fabricated tale meant for publicity. Scientists dismissed it as sleep paralysis or false memories, but those who knew Linda saw the fear in her eyes. She wasn't seeking fame. She wanted the truth. In 2024, Netflix released a documentary titled The Manhattan Alien Abduction, reigniting debates about the case. Interviews with Linda, UFO researchers, and skeptics painted a picture of both mystery and controversy. Had Linda truly experienced an abduction, or was this an elaborate hoax? Angered by how she was portrayed, Linda sued the streaming giant for defamation, insisting that her experience had been misrepresented. The case remains a cornerstone in UFO lore, dividing believers and doubters alike. To this day, Linda Napolitano's encounter stands as one of the most compelling alien abduction stories ever recorded. Was it a terrifying glimpse into extraterrestrial experimentation, or the manifestation of something deep within the human psyche?